Bem-vindo e bom dia de Washington. I'm Bill Tomson, Senior Trade Editor at AgriPulse. I'm pleased to see such an interest in our topic today, green technologies in agribusiness for a sustainable future. Today, we will hear from distinguished speakers, questions and answers. I'll make brief speaker introductions and encourage you to dig into their full biographies on our website. We also want to hear from you, the attendees. Feel free to offer your questions in the Q&A portion of the bottom of your screen, not the chat box. If you're experiencing technical issues, feel free to use the Q&A function to let us know, and our team will assist you. In addition, we'll also be recording today's discussion, and the webinar will be available later today at agripulse.com, together with a lot of news, some of it written by me. That's probably the best stuff, so take a look at it. I'd like to begin our program by thanking our program co-host, Apex-Brasil. I've worked with them a lot in the past. Today's webinar is also supported by the Brazil-U.S. Business Council, the Embassy of Brazil in Washington, D.C., been there many times, MAPA, and the Brazilian government offices of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Supply, the Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovations and Communications, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. To start, I'd like to welcome the Ambassador of Brazil to the United States, Nestor Forster. There you are. Bom dia, Ambassador. Ambassador Forster has been serving in his position since October 2020. His diplomatic experience covers areas such as trade negotiations. I paid a lot of attention to that. Intellectual property, financial policy, political affairs, international law, consular affairs, administration, and information technology. We're honored he was willing to kick off our discussion. Ambassador Nestor Forster, bem-vindo, obrigado.
Thank you very much, Bill. I'm honored to open this edition of AgriTalks. And let me just start by thanking Apex-Brasil and all the team there, especially my colleague Augusto Pestana, who leads Apex, and also Agri-Pulse and all the team there for organizing this very timely discussion. And thank you, all of you, for joining us today. This webinar will address two crucial and connected issues: the uses and possibilities of technology for food security and sustainability. In both of them, I believe Brazil and the U.S. already play fundamental roles and have an immense potential for contributing even more. As Brazil has shown over the past decades, it is possible to significantly expand food production while at the same time preserving natural resources and helping reduce carbon emissions. As you know, in the space of a few decades, Brazil went from a net importer of foodstuffs to playing an important role in food security around the world, feeding approximately 1 billion people. According to the USDA's Economic Research Service, between 1975 and 2020, the Brazilian agricultural output increased more than fivefold. During the same period, the amount of land used by agriculture increased only 33%. So that was the result of an exponential growth in agricultural productivity. This achievement didn't happen by chance. To a great extent, it was due to the work of the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, EMBRAPA. Since its creation in 1973, EMBRAPA has promoted science-based sustainable agriculture adapted to our own specific tropical conditions. It was also a story of entrepreneurship and innovation by Brazilian farmers and producers. The results are truly impressive. Brazilian agribusiness accounts today for 25% of our GDP, and a new production record was set last year in spite of the pandemic, with over 250 million tons of grains being harvested. Also on the technological side, there are more than 1,500 ag-tech companies now operating in Brazil, and with programs such as Startup Brazil and Agro 4.0, Brazilian startups in the agricultural sector are reaching new international markets and establishing new partnerships. Brazil also makes a unique contribution to environmental preservation by its very strict legislation, especially our forestry code, which requires that a certain amount of rural and forest properties be kept intact, a certain amount of the land of each property. It can reach around 80% in the Amazon region, for instance. It's worth remembering that Brazilian agriculture uses less than 8% of our territory to produce this tremendous output. So with 2/3 of our continental territory covered by native vegetation, host to the largest biodiversity in the planet, and with one of the cleanest energy mixes anywhere in the world, Brazil is both an environmental and an agri-food powerhouse. There is also a great potential for increased cooperation between Brazil and the United States, both between our governments and our private sectors, in promoting science-based sustainable agriculture around the world. This shared view is reflected in the recent establishment, for instance, of the Coalition for Sustainable Productivity Growth for Food Security and Resource Conservation, the so-called SPG Coalition, which is comprised by over 80 different entities, including governments and private sector, who have joined this initiative with the goal of accelerating the transition to sustainable food systems through productivity growth. Brazil and the U.S. also work together under the Agricultural Innovation Mission for Climate to promote sustainable increase in agricultural production and incomes and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So the Embassy is very pleased to collaborate with this event, and I hope the discussions today will highlight the many opportunities for Brazilian and American companies and public authorities in promoting investments and research in science-based agriculture and contributing to the goals of strengthening food security and preserving our natural resources. As a final note, let me just take this opportunity to congratulate the great leadership of our Minister of Agriculture and Livestock, Teresa Cristina, who I think will be our next speaker here, and who has been relentless and always gracious in promoting science-based sustainable agriculture in Brazil and around the world. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, thank you, Ambassador. Muito obrigado. Next, I'd like to welcome Teresa Cristina Correia da Costa Dias, who is the Minister of Agriculture, Livestock, and Supply of Brazil. She's the Ag Minister. She has served in this position since January 2019. Previously, she served as a lawmaker and was among the top 10 rated members of the House and praised as the lead defender of Brazilian agribusiness, also winning in the category of animal and plant health. As a representative, she was president of the Frente Parlamentar da Agricultura and the largest cross-party group in defense of Brazilian agribusiness. We'll now hear video comments from the Minister of Agriculture.
Bom dia a todos, quero cumprimentar os participantes deste importante evento, nas pessoas do nosso embaixador nos Estados Unidos, Nestor Forster Jr., do presidente da Apex-Brasil, Augusto Pestana, e do editor sênior da Agri-Pulse, Tomson. A iniciativa desse encontro é muito oportuna, não apenas pelo momento em que é realizado, mas pelo tema escolhido. Como sabem, o Brasil e os Estados Unidos são potências agroambientais e por isso o mundo espera muito de nós. Compartilhamos o desafio de produzir cada vez mais e melhor, para ajudar os demais países a garantirem sua segurança alimentar. Para atingir tal objetivo, precisamos constantemente desenvolver novas tecnologias que nos permitam aumentar a eficiência da produção sem agredir o meio ambiente. E nesse contexto, a inovação é fundamental. Investimentos em pesquisa científica e avanços tecnológicos permitiram o desenvolvimento no Brasil de uma agricultura tropicalizada, cujo crescimento se deu, sobretudo, pelo aumento extraordinário da produtividade. Isso não ocorreu da noite para o dia, Nossa EMBRAPA, por exemplo, há quase 50 anos desenvolve tecnologia de ponta que utilizamos no Brasil e exportamos a diversos países. A empresa conta com 2.200 pesquisadores, 90% deles com doutorado. Na estrutura do nosso Ministério da Agricultura, contamos com uma Secretaria de Inovação, Desenvolvimento Sustentável e Irrigação, composta também de pessoal altamente qualificado, muitos dos quais, aliás, oriundos da própria EMBRAPA. Não quero aqui adiantar o conteúdo das falas do Dr. Gui de Capdeville, diretor da EMBRAPA, nem do nosso secretário adjunto de Inovação, Kleber Soares. Mas posso dizer que o Brasil e os Estados Unidos têm muito a compartilhar na área de tecnologias verdes para o agronegócio. Podemos e devemos trocar experiências sobre Agritech, bioinsumos, tecnologias carbono neutra, modelo de relação com startups, entre tantos temas de interesse mútuo. Temos certeza de que os debates propostos para este webinar e muito contribuirão para encontrarmos formas de cooperar e avançar juntos nessas áreas. Desejo, assim, muito êxito aos participantes dos 2 painéis deste encontro, tanto que tratará sobre políticas públicas e investimentos verdes no agronegócio, como que discutirá o tema da inovação. Que esta manhã de debates seja proveitosa a todos. Muito obrigada.
Oh, thank you, Minister Teresa Cristina. Muito obrigado. At this time now, I want to introduce the first of 2 panels for today's program. The first will cover green agriculture policies and investments in Brazil. Serving as your moderator will be me. And now I'm going to go on to talk about who's on that panel. Our first panelist is Sibeli Silva, Director of Innovation at the Ministry of Agriculture. Sibeli, you there? There you are. Hi, Sibeli.
Yes. Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Oh, prazer meu. Also joining them is Jeremy Adamson, who is a policy advisor in the Office of the Administrator for the Foreign Agriculture Service in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. He's been in this position since March. Prior to that, Adamson spent over a decade working directly with growers, ag retailers, supply channels, distributors, cooperators, COIs, and marketing agencies. A lot going on there these days. Welcome, Jeremy.
Good afternoon, Bill. Good morning, I should say.
Yeah, it is. Rounding out this panel is Larissa Wachholz. I hope I pronounced that right, who's Executive Director of Flora Capital. She has worked in the area of infrastructure, energy, and agribusiness throughout her career. Previously, she was a special advisor to the Brazilian Minister of Agriculture, Livestock, and Supply until July 2021, this summer. Larissa, tudo bem?
Hi.
Hi.
Tudo bem, Bill? How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now, as a reminder, please enter your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll only take intelligence questions. I'm just kidding. We take all questions. And now I'm going to turn it over to myself and start this discussion. While we have the U.S. and Brazil all representative here, thank you so much. And I don't know, I think I should just hand it over from somebody who knows nothing to some people who know a lot of really interesting stuff. Folks, hello.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Hey, Bill. Bill, I'm happy to start with some remarks if that might help.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear that.
Okay.
No problem at all, Bill. And again, I want to thank Apex-Brasil and AgriPulse for putting on this very important and timely discussion on green tech and agribusiness and innovations needed here. Also want to acknowledge the panelists, and this truly is an honor to be here representing the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I guess I'll start by recognizing that the U.S. and Brazil share great history in ag innovation. I think Ambassador Forster referenced this as well. We've been working together for quite a while. Dating back to the 1960s, early work with the USDA scientists helped pave the way for some of the incredible work that MAPA has done to help develop new soybean varieties, including those that flourish in tropics, in shorter day length, and wet and mild climate. Today, Brazil's tropical savanna is one of the most productive agricultural areas in the Western Hemisphere and is home to soybean, corn, and cotton production. And in turn, Brazil's experience with no-till technology, as an example, helped improve upon some of our systems in the U.S. with regards to adoption, as well as subsequent advancements in equipment and the benefits of this practice. Brazil's no-till equipment that can punch through long-standing cotton stalks for double cropping in a season is a classic example of innovation in agribusiness to advance a more sustainable food future that can meet growing demands as well as our climate goals. Today, USDA is agricultural research partners with EMBRAPA on collaborative research via LabX-USA. This is a virtual lab that has been operating since 1998, and it's yielded critical outcomes for sustainable agricultural productivity growth. And our partnership with Brazil continues under the recently renewed high-level working group on agriculture and climate change. This is a meeting that I co-led, as well as several other initiatives, and I want to talk a little bit about those in a bit as well. But first, I want to mention what goes without being saying and what's the core of this discussion, which is we can't feed the growing world and tackle the climate crisis at the same time without innovation. Climate-smart agriculture and food system innovation can enhance existing approaches and deliver new ways to sustainably increase agricultural productivity, can improve livelihoods, conserve nature and biodiversity. But at the same time, it can adapt and build resilience to climate change, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and sequester carbon. Access to new tools also allows us to advance, and we must advance if we are to attain greater sustainability and resilience with finite natural resources. In addition to advancements in precision agriculture and no-till practices, with technologies like genome editing as an example, new traits can be developed more easily, with greater precision, more quickly, and at lower costs. Efficiencies like these have enabled small companies to carve out new areas for innovation. They're developing niche traits in agricultural sectors that have not only been able to benefit from genetic engineering to date, but also helps other crops, such as specialty crops, underutilized crops, and forestry. These innovative technologies, when combined with over 3 decades of experience, allows us to develop new solutions, promote safety across our food systems, and increase the options available for consumers. We know there's a huge demand for climate adaptation in agriculture, but there's also enormous opportunities for mitigation through the scaling of practices that sequester carbon and through adoption of new technologies and tools. But we need increased investment to deliver the productivity and efficiency gains that build resilient to climate impacts, positioning producers to be part of the climate solution, and also enhancing their bottom line and the well-being in rural communities. And also want to acknowledge the entrepreneurial spirit of Brazilian farmers and capitalists as an example, as they can and will play a key role in continuing the advancement and resilience of Brazilian agriculture. And as noted, we encourage public-private investment in ag innovation and reduce barriers from these solutions, and to help reduce barriers from getting these solutions in the hand of those who need them throughout the channel. But closing the investment gap needed for innovation to support climate-smart agriculture and food systems is why we launched the Agriculture Innovation Mission for Climate, as referenced earlier by the ambassador. Aim for Climate, it's another example of a systems-based approach that recognizes the need for increased investment to catalyze innovation in agriculture and food systems, to realize climate and economic benefits. We're thrilled to have Brazil as a part of Aim for Climate as a government partner. In fact, Brazil was among the first countries to express their support for this initiative when it was initially launched back at President Biden's Leaders Summit on Climate in April. President Biden in the UAE launched the Aim for Climate initiative at COP26. And this featured over 80 government and non-government partners in an early harvest, what we're calling an early harvest, which is an increased investment of $4 billion for climate smart and agriculture and food system innovation. And we've already established a target for COP27. We're working towards $8 billion, so that's more than doubling our goal by COP27. But private sector and non-profit organizations are also critical to the success of Aim4C, to which we've announced 8 innovation sprints, each representing an increase in aggregate self-financed investment to achieve a specific quantifiable outcome or output in agricultural innovation for climate smart agriculture and food systems. These innovations are broad and demonstrate collaboration, but also show a broad set of tools and resources, as well as proof points of climate smart agriculture and forestry innovations derived from non-government partners. And as previously mentioned, as 2 of the Western Hemisphere's largest agricultural producers, international cooperation is crucial, not only to ensure a fair trading system that feeds the world, but also to demonstrate large-scale agricultural production can be done so sustainably and in a way that meets our sustainable climate change objectives. And we have arrived at a new juncture on agricultural innovation in which the United States and Brazil are in a favorable position to co-create and advance climate smart agriculture and food systems through a number of bilateral public and private partnerships. The United States and Brazil are co-leading the recently launched Coalition of Action of Sustainable Productivity Growth for Food Security and Resource Conservation, or as we like to call it, the SPG Coalition, to help elevate the importance of productivity and coalesce action for sustainable productivity that advances social, economic, and environmental objectives. The coalition has already amassed over 80 members from the private sector, academia and research institutes, as well as 14 countries, plus the FAO. The SPG Coalition will provide a platform for sharing best practices, identifying information gaps, research and collaborative opportunities, as well as, and most importantly, disseminating the information and ultimately sharing SPG Coalition successes and challenges. But ultimately, we need to get these innovations into the fields and into the hands of producers. Interest from the private sector in focusing on climate solutions and climate smart agricultural investment, in addition to the desire to connect consumers to their products in innovative ways, was part of the rationale behind USDA's Climate Smart Agriculture and Forestry Partnership Program. This initiative will finance the production of climate smart commodities through a series of large-scale pilots and demonstrate projects, and will finance the steps necessary to properly measure and validate the environmental results from these practices. These projects will create new market opportunities for producers and landowners through the production of commodities that meet the growing demand for sustainable products in the U.S. and preserve and expand export opportunities for these commodities. I believe that meeting these objectives presents enormous opportunities for the agriculture and forestry sectors. But before I conclude, I want to acknowledge Brazil's recent commitment to reducing carbon emissions by 1.1 billion tons in the agricultural sector by 2030. This is along with other ambitious targets, including the treatment of animal waste, intensive fishing, and reaching 72.8 million hectares with sustainable productivity technologies. Along with these ambitious domestic commitments, Brazil has also joined the U.S. and more than 100 countries in signing the Global Methane Pledge, for which I am pleased to convey our sincere appreciation for Minister Christina's support. As global leaders in sustainable agriculture and food systems, the action we take to address climate change greatly influences the rest of the world. Our ability to raise ambition, drive innovation, our collaboration and leadership all demonstrate our example on the global stage and will play a key role in tackling the climate crisis. Again, I appreciate the time and the opportunity to deliver these remarks as a tee-off for this session, and look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Jeremy. Just more proof of why FAS is my favorite USDA agency. And so let's go straight from FAS / USDA to the Brazilian Ag Ministry. Sibeli, Glad to hear from you now. If you have a few words of wisdom, we'd love to hear them.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. It's very good to hear from Jeremy that we are really aligned. We are part of the IEM initiative for climate. And I would like to say to you some words about our big picture for the strategic vision for innovation that we are building here in the Ministry of Agriculture. And first of all, as we are discussing here, we have in mind the well-known future scenarios for agriculture. We know that globally, we will need a 70% increase in food supply. And one need is to meet the requirements of a population of around 9 billion people by 2050. And as a consequence, we know that the agricultural producers are forced to increase productivity. Moreover, we have the big challenge that we are discussing here, the climate change, which limits the production. But the producers are already part of the solution. And more, we need to think that we need not only more food itself, we need more nutrition, nutritive food, sustainability in it. And besides, we need more water, electricity, we need to deal with the internet challenge here in Brazil that is really important, and so on. And we need to remember that our modern farmers are not only agriculture producers, but they are also quality food suppliers and even ecosystems managers. They are already part of the solutions. And with this big scenario, we have a strategic horizon to match with those needs. And we have 4 strategic pillars to match it. They are the sustainability, the food security, the food safety, and this one was really demanding in these COVID times, and the 4th, the society. And let's consider in a few words some of the priorities in each of those pillars. When we are talking about sustainability, the main areas are related to the advances for innovation in agribusiness, related to decarbonization, greenhouse gas mitigation, the sustainable exploitation of the resources. And when we are talking about this food security pillar, we focus on the advances, the technology, as you mentioned, EMBRAPA, that is really helping the productivity itself. And we also focus on the efficiency and effectiveness on the lack of food supply. And for sure, the nutritional shortcome. We include strategies for overcoming the hunger and the malnutritional challenge. And this encompasses the reduction of losses and waste. And when we're talking about food safety, we consider the need of tech progress, the need of innovation, including traceability to attend the consumer's demand of information about sustainability, which is related to certification issues. We have additional focus on the value capture, which means convincing and proving to the consumer about the sustainability in the food chain of the end products they buy. And at last, when we talk about the society pillar, we aim to promote the sensibilization to the society about how much they can benefit the planet by preferring the consumption of sustainable products. And as we know, we have a strong innovation ecosystem here in Brazil. We have about 1,500 startups working in this ecosystem. And those startups are already working about green technologies, as we are talking here with you. And another policies we have here, and I need to mention, is the policies related to decarbonization, the policies related to our ABC plan. And I need to mention here that hand in hand with the innovation that those startups promote, we dedicate innovation efforts to develop integrated systems aiming this decarbonization. We have, as you know, the sectorial plan for climate change, adaptation, and low carbon emission in agriculture. We call this ABC Plus, a new plan that we launched on COP26. And this plan was built on a previous edition, and seeks to consolidate the Brazilian agriculture on the basis of sustainable, resilient, and productive systems. Our ministry here sees the ABC plan as an instrument that promotes sustainability in agriculture through strategies of adaptation and mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions. And we have some examples of technology among this ABC plan. And some examples are related to technology for livestock production. We have that trademark we call carbon neutral Brazilian beef. That is a brand concept which aims to certify meat production having their GHG emissions volumes neutralized within the production systems. And in this case, the presence of trees is required. This technology, this low carbon or neutral carbon technology, established parameterized process for the value chain, along with technical support of EMBRAPA. And this is expanding to new production systems. In the near future, and Jeremy talked about soy, in the near future, we will have the low carbon soybean systems that are already in development at EMBRAPA, just to give you an example. And not only about directly to livestock productions, but in connection with these sustainable production systems, we have here in Brazil a well-established program we call Bio-Inputs Program. It's a program related to the bio-based agriculture. And the idea here is to help the farmers to control pests and diseases using bio-based agriculture products. This is a strong market that we are building in Brazil. It is growing at rates of around 37% in Brazil, and we have almost 500 bio-based products available for the producers. And here, as we are talking, this follows a global trend in agriculture, improving productivity while reducing costs and developing farm systems based on more sustainable resources. The Bio-Inputs program can be used in integrated systems, for instance. And we have many advances from our ABC plan. We have many technologies developed in partnership with startups, with EMBRAPA, with universities, and we expect to be near USA, near the innovation ecosystems in USA, to develop even more technologies, to develop even more products like the carbon neutral Brazilian beef, like the soil that have low carbon emissions in the production systems. And as in this pathway, we can continue proving that we have a strong, innovative and sustainable agriculture here in Brazil. Then I would like to point these brief points and to continue our debate here. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jeremy and Larissa, for being here with me.
Sibeli, muito obrigado. Thank you so much. Now let's move to the private sector. Larissa, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Bill. And I'm very happy that I get to speak after Jeremy and my friend and former colleague, Sibeli. It's great to see you, Sibeli, because I guess the private sector wants to know how we put together these initiatives that were mentioned by Jeremy and the need for increased private financing, private investment to the sector, and making use of the technologies and the priorities that were just highlighted by Sibeli. So I will speak from our perspective now. We are preparing investment funds and alternatives that seek to address exactly this challenge, how to combine policy and technologies with the real day-to-day activities of rural producers and investors who are also seeking return on their investments. So this is our role here. And in this sense, I should say that the Brazilian government has been implementing a number of new instruments or improving available regulation legislation to allow for private investors to direct their funds into the agriculture sector with the goal of promoting green, sustainable, and I must also highlight the socially sustainable projects related to agriculture. So what instruments are these? Like what is available for these foreign investors to actually join this market? And this is going to be what I'll be talking about. So we would like to highlight the fact that this year we had the launching of a new type of investment fund directed to the agricultural sector in Brazil, and this is called the FIAGRO. And FIAGROs, they are inspired by the existing regulation available for other types of investment funds in Brazil. So it is based on a regulation that already existed, that was already trusted by investors, that already worked very well, but that was mainly available for financing projects in the urban sector, in cities. So it worked very well for that purpose, but we lacked an instrument that was made precisely for the rural sector, the agriculture sector in Brazil, and that's how FIAGRO was developed. So FIAGRO is a type of new investment fund fully dedicated to the agricultural sector and to the areas related to agriculture, which means processing of agricultural goods or logistics that somehow will be involved in the agricultural production chain. And with FIAGROs, we can allow foreign investors to join this market as well, because they can be shareholders of FIAGRO funds, and they can, for instance, establish FIAGRO funds that are based on rural bonds that are US dollar backed. So you can have rural bonds traced or backed in US dollar, and you can have foreign investors becoming shareholders of these funds, which allows for foreign investors to actually join this market. And it is innovative to allow for these bonds, these bonds to be issued in US dollar. This is something new. It is from the beginning of this year. And combined with that, we also have the creation of this type of new investment funds called the FIAGRO. So those are two very important innovations that we have for the investment, the financing sector, that I would like to highlight today. And why can it be helpful for the development of green agriculture, or, as I mentioned before, socially responsible agriculture projects? Investors can decide what kind of investment thesis they're going to have, and they can direct their interest, their thesis, to projects that will either from the beginning comply with a certain set of sustainable standards that they want to work for. So you might have investors that already have standards that they will be looking at, and then you will only include in these investment funds projects that are already compliant with the standards that have been defined. So this is one way to work that. And you might have a thesis to actually expand these projects that are already fully compliant and considered sustainable projects. And you can make them larger, you can implement the same techniques to new rural properties, for instance, but you are starting from projects that you picked that already comply with the regulations that you deem acceptable. On the other hand, you can also work to promote the transformation of projects that were not at the origin already fully compliant, that did not meet the perfect standards from day zero, but you actually finance them exactly with the goal of making a change, making a transformation, and allowing those areas to actually develop into fully compliant, green, sustainable agriculture projects. For instance, you can focus on rural properties that have degraded pastures, and you might want to install in these farms, in these properties, the techniques that Sibeli just mentioned. And then I refer to this integration between crop, livestock, and forest that might allow you to produce carbon neutral beef, for instance, or the low carbon soybean that Sibeli was talking about. That is something that they are working on. It's not available now, but you can use these funds to encourage these projects to take place. So you can buy these farms that have degraded pastures, and your investment thesis can be that you're going to convert them into these new areas with crop and livestock, or crop and livestock and forest combined. You can also, from the standpoint of socially sustainable practices, you might also choose projects that are focusing on family farming, on improving family farming, and bringing family farming techniques that are low carbon agricultural techniques from the ABC plan that Sibeli was talking about. So your thesis might be that you are encouraging these family farmers to apply these techniques, and you're giving them the means to do so, because they need to make investments in order to perform these new techniques. They need to learn to seek education, but they'll probably also need machinery and a set of tools that will not come for free. So they will need private investment for them to be able to do that. You might also, for instance, select a number of organic producers that you choose to encourage their production, expand their production, help them process their product, and bring that to the final consumer. And you can use FIAGROs for all those purposes, and it will all depend on what is the expectation of the investor in terms of the returns they want to have on their investments, on the time that they need for this return to come, and they will decide their thesis, and then you can include in the fund projects that will be developed according to their thesis. And finally, I would like to highlight the fact that we have recently regulated in Brazil what we call the CPR Verde, the green rural bonds, the green rural production bonds. And within this category of bonds, we have one type of bond in particular, which is a native forest bond. So you can use this kind of bond to promote projects in which your goal is to keep the native forest there without touching it. Maybe you want to have some sustainable project that will allow you to make use of parts of this native forest, but your goal might be that you would like to preserve that to the best of your abilities. You can do that through a FIAGRO. You might acquire this land. It can be included in the fund, and foreign investors can be shareholders of these funds and make decisions on how their thesis will be developed and how the project will be developed, and really have a hands-on approach on this, the future of these projects. So just to summarize, we have new investment vehicles in Brazil that bring the necessary governance and transparency that foreign investors will be looking for. You can have projects that are already fully compliant with the sustainable targets, the sustainable goals that you have already set, or you can use your funds to actually help develop more sustainable projects in Brazilian agriculture and convert areas that maybe were not originally fully compliant, but with your investment, they can implement low carbon agricultural techniques or other techniques that will make that project more sustainable from a social and environmental perspective. And Brazil is open for business, so we will be very happy to welcome U.S. investors with this new framework, legal framework that we are have available in Brazil at the moment. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, thank you, Larissa. Now, if we could just get Brazil to buy more ethanol. Sorry, I'm a trade guy.
We also have ethanol for sale.
yeah, no, I've bought plenty of alcohol in my life. The fuel, mind you. We're running a little over time, but that's all right. I'm not too worried about that. I do want to bring in somebody with a lot of experience in sustainability, Eduardo Bastos. He's the Latin American head of sustainability at Bayer Crop Science. Eduardo, oh, there you are, Eduardo. Great. Hey, how are you? Good. Glad to have you with us. And however, though, not too much time for pleasantries because we're over the time limit. But again, I'm not panicking. I want to get at least one question in here. But I'm going to preface this question. So in preface, Brazil preserves about, Larissa, was it 70%? I think about 70% of its land to native vegetation. This is, it's a pretty big feat. It's a huge country. And I've seen the breakdowns of this. While also the government spends millions of dollars to promote soil conservation and all kinds of other stuff. But the question here, one of the questions from the audience is, how does Brazil plan to address the accelerating rates? And I'm thinking maybe it didn't accelerate the last year, but maybe somebody could correct me, of deforestation in the Amazon. And also, and maybe Jeremy might want to weigh in this, I don't know, does the U.S. have any plans to partner with Brazil on this whole deforestation? And I'm assuming they're not talking just about the Amazon, but also the savanna. What's the savanna in Brazil? What do they call it? The
Cerrado.
Cerrado. Yes, absolutely beautiful lands. Anyway, that's the question. So what do you guys think?
Sure.
Anybody who wants to jump in?
I can start to help to give the proper answer. Definitely, we do have 63. The last number is 63 protected. Almost double than any other country partner / competitor in the world. But if you think about it, we have 850 million hectares, 8.5 million square kilometers. So this is the average size of the country. And yes, we have, unfortunately, this deforestation rate. The last year, it's 1.3 million hectares. So it's quite big. In the end of the day, we have 3 owners of the land. We have more, but we can include most of the owners in 3 parts, and there are different perspectives to address in each one of them. Government-owned lands, which means indigenous lands, national parks, and all those things. We are talking about at least 550 million hectares. And that's the biggest challenge by far, is to designate the land. So we do have still today 50 million hectares without any designations. So it's clear that most of the deforestation occurs in that area because it's a no land area. So there's no a specific owner. There's no that, and that's the challenge for us. This is by far the biggest challenge that we have in our country. The second pillar, it's the smallholders. So 30% of deforestation in Brazil came from smallholders. And this that we call social deforestation. And how can we address that? We can address that with technical assistance and extension. So definitely this is the most important thing that we can help to address, to help those smallholders to increase their productivity, and therefore there's no need to increase area to keep shopping forests to do that. And then we have the third pillar, which is the medium and the big farmers, because they own land that can be deforested by law. So we do have at least 10 million hectares in the hands of farmers they can legally shop. So if you want to stop that kind of deforestation, with legal deforestation, it will be really important to implement COP26 agreements, which means in the end of the day, payment for ecosystem services. So we must put a price in the forests, and that price can be higher than the price of soybean or corn or whatever. So up to now, if we cut that forest to grow something, the farmers, they will make more money. So if you want to convince those farmers to say, okay, stop, and say, that's fine, I can do that, but please do pay me. So there's a lot of money all over the world. The challenge here is how can you channel that money to Brazil, to those farmers, from one side to technical assistance and smallholders, and to pay for ecosystem services in the big ones. I think I can cover in a couple minutes your question. Thanks, Bill.
No, thank you, Eduardo. Anybody else want to jump in, or we safe to move on? Thank you, Eduardo.
Yeah, I'll just
Thank you, it's
quickly.
perfect.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a great answer, Eduardo. But I'll just quickly highlight that, USDA, the U.S. Forest Service, I should say, has been working with Brazil on technical assistance for forestry for over 30 years now. So, certainly welcome that continued discussion and partnership.
Yeah, maybe we should export Smoky.
And more, Bill and Eduardo. Nice to see you, Eduardo. I would like to add that we have the ABC plan and the Safra plan, which is a financing model to support the national agriculture and farming. And inside this Safra plan, there are some important indications for low carbon agriculture. We are fostering the alternative energies for the producers, using the integrated systems, and also the bio-based agriculture. Then we are also, as government, financing and giving good conditions for producers to invest in these sustainable technologies. And this is helping all of the country in this scenario, as we said here.
Listen, thank you so much. There are a lot more questions. I can't get to them, but don't worry, we're going to provide the audience with all of your cell phone numbers, emails, home addresses, and all that. So just be prepared for that. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But again, everybody, thank you so much. And the wealth of knowledge here is, I could talk to you guys for hours, but thanks again. I'm going to move on to the next panel though. So ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, on to the next panel. Today's second panel, we'll dive into the topic of Agritech, startups and the innovation bridge. Moderating the session is Rodrigo Mendes, who's the Director of International Relations at the National Association of Entities Promoting Innovative Enterprises. Mendes is the former president of the Latin American division of the International Association of Science Parks. Rodrigo.
Hello, Bill. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay, here we go. Our first panelist is Dr. Guy de Capdeville. Dr. Guy. He's the vice president of the Brazilian Agriculture Research Corporation, MAPA. They have a lot of information. If you have a few years, go check out their website and download it all. And that's under the Brazilian Ag Ministry. Dr. Capdeville's experience is in agronomy, focusing on phytopathology. Doctor, I think I got your first name right.
Yes, Guy. You did it right.
Guilherme, no?
No, it's Guy. Guy because it's a French name.
Oh, okay, all right, good. Yeah, I got the Brazilian, the French, so throw a few more nationalities at me. Also joining the team is Diego DiMartino, the Latin American Sustainability Manager for ADM, one of my favorite companies. Martino has led prospection and implementation of projects, operations of assets, administrative and commercial positions. My old job, representing the company sector in different class associations. He's engaged in multiple multi-stakeholder sustainability initiatives to discuss the ways to improve supply chains. And I'm sure you are in high demand these days because supply chains, oh, there's some problems with them around the world. Diego, there you are. Welcome.
Hi, Bill. Thank you. Welcome and thank you, everyone.
We also welcome to the panel Danny O'Brien, Managing Director of Europe, the Middle East, and Africa at Thrive, where he's responsible for leading the expansion in the region, connecting with partners and identifying disruptive startups who are positively changing our food system. Danny. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Good. Glad to have you. Rounding out the panel is Francisco Jardim, who's co-founder and managing partner at SP Ventures. Is that SP is in Sao Paulo?
SP is in São Paulo, sir.
All right. That was a good guess. He has led more than 34 investments and has served on more than 20 boards of directors in this sector. Francisco, as a reminder, everybody, this is all you people who aren't highlighted here in the audience. Please enter your questions in the Q&A box, and a hint, the first one in probably gets their question read. I will now turn it over to Rodrigo to start the discussion. Rodrigo.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for Agri-Pulse and Apex-Brasil for this seminar, and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Agriculture in Brazil and Ministry of Science and Technology, all great partners of Agritech. We've been working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and promoting the connection and internationalization of startups. And I will pass on the same order as Bill called us in, and to pass to Guy and EMBRAPA. I would like to direct our conversation, Guy, looking on the opportunities and challenges for agricultural startups and technology development. And of course, with this drive into potential of internationalization and more or less bilateral partnerships between the U.S. and Brazil. If you please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. I would like to send my greetings to Dr. Diego DiMartino, Danny O'Brien, and Francisco Jardim, the members of this panel working with us. I would like also to greet the president of Apex-Brasil, Augusto Pestana, Bill Tomson, in your name, people from Agri-Pulse, our Brazilian ambassador in the U.S., Nestor Forster, and the other people present here in this audience. I would like to start bringing some information about EMBRAPA, about the way we structure our research, and to show how it connects with Agri-Tax and other possibilities for partnership, for developing research and also, of course, bringing innovation to the agriculture sector. EMBRAPA is the Brazilian Research Corporation. It has around 8,000 employees. 2,200 of those are PhDs and researchers. We have those researchers spread over 43 decentralized units that we have in EMBRAPA, each one in a different state of Brazil. We have three kinds of units of EMBRAPA. The ones that we call thematic centers, which deal with specific topics such as energy or biotechnology or other issues like this. Also, we have units dedicated to products, EMBRAPA cotton, EMBRAPA soybean, EMBRAPA maize and sorghum, etc. And finally, we have eco-regional centers. So those centers are located in different biomes of Brazil. For instance, we have EMBRAPA Cerrados, EMBRAPA Savana, EMBRAPA Pantanal, and EMBRAPA Oriental and Occidental Amazon, and others like that. We have a strong international cooperation. I saw here Dr. Adamson from ARS USDA. He mentioned that we have the EMBRAPA laboratory at the exterior. We call it LabX. And this is a long-term partnership that we have with ARS USDA. And we have plans. We are preparing a new proposition to ARS so we can strengthen even more our partnership, mostly for innovation at this point. We have also cooperation, the same kind of lab in Europe, for instance, in Montpellier, France. But we have also technical cooperation with countries in Africa, in Latin America, Caribbean, and other regions of the world. EMBRAPA organized its research program by means of a strategic intelligence work. We have created here what we call AgroPensa. It's a kind of lab that holds people that are dedicated to work to see what are the trends in agriculture in the world, in a broad sense. So this work have provided us with 7 mega trends that we call, for instance, intensification and sustainability of production systems, climate change, and others. So by identifying what are the tendencies that we have all over the world, and from demands from the society, demands from the partners, the research partners, public and private partners. So with this information, we follow to our strategic planning. So we have a document where we have some strategic objectives that we're identified. And from those, we have selected a number of goals which are pursued by our researchers in using different kinds of projects. And I will mention to you. For instance, our program is coordinated by 34 portfolios of research. Those portfolios, I'm going to give you some examples. Amazon portfolio, aquaculture, biological inputs, nanotechnology, climate change, integrated systems. So we have 34 portfolios of research, and the orientation of our research is mission-oriented. So we have done a consultation with more than 1,700 growers, associations, universities, asking them what are the innovation challenges that they consider for their areas, for their sectors, that should be addressed by research. So with this information in hand, we organize our innovation program, and it includes originating an idea and developing a project, going to the development phase, and then to innovation. So with this information, we can organize our programs in different ways. We use 4 types of projects to do this innovation system in EMBRAPA. The first project is basically research advance. So advancing in science. So we get a new idea, we start working in this new idea, we prepare projects, we fund projects, and we get the results. Those results that deserve to go further, if we can use the results for innovation, actually. So we start developing those projects to other scale. So the idea is once we have something that has potential for market, we have to develop it. And for that, we have a second type of project, which is a developing project for those advances that we had before. And from this point, once we see that actually we have potential for market, that standards have been broken. So what I say is, in the market, you have some standards. If with the new technology we develop, if we reach more than those standards, so this means that we could offer that for a partnership with the public or the private sector for co-development. So those projects are called projects number 3 here. They are open innovation projects. The idea is to have, together with the partner, a public or a private partner, we're going to share the risks and we're going to share the funding of this project. And this partner, EMBRAPA is a public institution, we don't have profit objectives. So this partner will have the preference for exploring the technology that will be developed in the market. So he will have the rights. He will pay to EMBRAPA royalties or other forms of payments for the work we have done, for the technology we have developed. And from this point on, we co-develop, and then the partner alone will take the technology to the field. So this is one point that I consider important here in this discussion, because it's the way American companies could relate to EMBRAPA. So we have a mechanism for doing partnership, for advancing in research, for co-developing, and to innovate. But EMBRAPA will not sell technologies. EMBRAPA will license technologies. So this, I think, is important, mostly for startups, which are small, they need seed money, and EMBRAPA has the mechanisms. We offer our people, researchers, technicians, and we offer our infrastructure. And in some extent, depending on the partner, some money as well. Okay, so with this, what are and we have also the type 4 projects, which are we use it to support innovation. So they are projects that will run in parallel to the other projects, helping the innovation process. Okay, so to have partnership in type 3 projects, we may have it with public or private partners. We need to produce projects that are innovation driven. We need to co-fund the project and IP sharing. This is something quite important in the model that we're going to set the agreement, and we will conduct our partnership in the development of that innovation that this partner will take to the field. It can be a public institution such as ARS USDA, as we already have some projects going on. Okay, so another thing important to say here is that with those mechanisms that we have in hands, we are working in many areas of agriculture. And because of sustainability is the issue today, everything that we are doing today is being done having sustainability as the basic concept for everything. We know that markets will open only for those that produce with sustainability. And Brazil is doing that. I would like to, before passing to some of the results, I would like to show you just a few numbers. Not show, but I will speak a few numbers that will show how important technology is for producing with sustainability. Brazil is today maybe the second or the first producer of soybean in the world. In the 70s, as mentioned here for some of in the previous panel, in the 70s, we have dependency in import food. So the technology we had at that point, if we use that technology to produce the amount of soybean that we produce today, we would need 200% more area for producing the same amount of soybean that we produce today. This means that over 50 years, we have saved 70 million hectares of land because of adoption of technology. I'm talking about genetics, well-conceived production systems, saving water, saving molecules for controlling disease and pests, saving the soil, the fertility of the soil, and many other technologies that helped to save land. The same thing happened with the cotton sector. The cotton sector in the 70s, we used to produce 1 million tons of cotton in 4 million hectares. Today, we produce 4 million tons in 1.7 million hectares. This is a land saving effect of around 13 million hectares. With the cattle sector, and I'm about to conclude my speech, to the cattle sector, we were able to increase in 80% our export of meat without increasing 1 hectare of land to produce this cattle. So this is equivalent at 250 million hectares saved along 50 years. So these are data that we have produced, just to show you a book that we are spreading all over, so people could have actual data, validated data, published data to support this information that I'm giving you. To conclude, we have done with those kind of projects that I mentioned before, some actions to produce new assets for the agricultural production in Brazil. So, for instance, low carbon or net zero carbon production systems is being developed for soybean, coffee, meat, cotton, corn, swines, and chicken, and many others. Our systems in Brazil, we will evaluate to this model, sustainable model of production. We have organized a group of researchers here in Brazil, in EMBRAPA, to organize all the concepts and methodologies, and the methodologies that are accepted by international certification institutions in Europe, in the U.S., and other countries, so we can have the same model for all of those sustainable production systems. So using the same scales, the same methodologies. Of course, there are differences between them, but we will try to standardize the way we conduct those kind of research. But to give you other ideas, the important actions that we are doing that combine with other topics mentioned in the last panel, we are conducting a project together with the U.S. The name is Pronasolos. It's a program where we're going to study all the soils of Brazil: fertility, structure, organic composition, microbiology of the soil. So those information will be quite important to us to use the inputs for production in a very controlled and sustainable way. We are also investing in bio-inputs, as our colleague Sibeli mentioned before. There is a program of the Ministry of Agriculture in Brazil named bio-input, as she mentioned. And the idea is to use microorganisms as a substitute for other forms of, for instance, disease control. So using microorganisms as biological control agents, we can produce in a more sustainable way, avoiding the use of chemicals, which are quite a problem if we consider they are explored of no renewable source. So the idea is, how can we get from biodiversity present in Brazil molecules, renewable molecules that we could use as pest controls, disease control agents, in substitution of those that comes from, for instance, of oil refining or other chemicals produced in a non-sustainable way, in a non-renewable way. Give you two examples.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you could just wrap up because we need to move to the other panelists. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to finish. So just two examples. BiomaFos is one product that we developed for using phosphate that is held in the soil after fertilization. This is not used by the plant. So this microorganism release it, offer to the plant, so we don't have to use phosphorus for fertilization. Okay, so this is some of the examples that we have been using for sustainable production in Brazil, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Sorry for my delay here.
No, thank you very much, Bill. Moving forward and trying to be a little bit faster now because we are a little bit over time. Diego, I would direct you with a question of what is the role of a multinational agricultural company in promoting Agri-Tax or cooperating with startups, and how would you be working with these kind of startup companies?
Yes, thank you, Rodrigo. Be glad to answer that one, and thank you everyone for participating in this program. As you know, everything is connected today globally. So we see global companies they want to have better and more precise way of understanding what goes on across the globe in order to provide better services for making smarter decisions. These innovative technologies can always be able to, I don't know, maybe monitor climate, supply and demand, carbon stocks, traceability from farm to fork, help us track ESG KPIs. So these are sort of things that we would like to know better, and I assume that other companies or peers of ours are also looking into this type of technologies. Okay, and the role that we play here, it's huge, I would say. Okay, we see there's a big opportunity for improvement. Okay, we do have a very deep understanding of complex ag supply chains. Fortunately, we do know most of the actors across the supply chains, not only the farmers but also customers of ours that are downstream. And we also get to the consumers many times with some of our products. So we have a relatively fair idea of what people are looking for. Okay, we keep track and we try to see these trends, and we try to make sure that we provide a solution to what's coming. So when we have all this, when we operate in so many geographies and when we operate in so many markets or different ag commodities, we have a way to connect these things, and maybe we have the ideas that can be used by startups that can provide that technology, so that we bring solutions forward, not only for our companies but also to consumers and maybe to farmers. Maybe we can connect them to input providers and service providers and make their life easier. Maybe there's a way that they can trade commodities better. Maybe I don't know, a customer now has all the supply chain information that he requires traceability wise. We can also bring a way to lower the types of inputs and have a better sustainable production, making yields higher without using that much land. So there's tons of ways of promoting this technology, I would say. Okay, and I think that fortunately we do have the knowledge or the ways of connecting these technologies.
Thank you very much, Diego. And Danny, thank you very much for being here with us. And as a venture builder or a company that supports startups from all over the world, what is the internationalization potential of agriculture startups and the technologies they develop? How do you see this as breakthrough for startups internationalized and developing new technologies? How are you guys looking at that?
Thank you, Rodrigo, and great to be here again. again, with such a great panel and great speakers on the previous ones as well. Just to give you a bit of background about SVG Ventures Thrive, and before I touch on your questions. So we're a global innovation and investment platform investing in agri-food tech. We've been doing it for about 10 years based in Silicon Valley. We have an accelerator program there and also one in Calgary, Alberta in Canada as well. So, you know, ourselves, we've expanded internationally over the years following the interest in agri-food tech and where some of that deal flow is coming from, which might be a good example to kind of touch on your question. You know, 10% of our portfolio to date of about 60 companies came from Canada. So we ended up setting up an accelerator in Canada. Similarly, you know, thinking about agri-food tech globally, it's, you know, it's facing challenge. The agri-food value chain faces challenges, different challenges in different regions of the world. And we see, although we're based in Silicon Valley, we see startups coming from all over the world. We're tracking about 5,000 startups who are focused on different areas of the value chain. And we invite them to Silicon Valley to our program. We invest globally around the world. We've invested in Brazil, even in companies there before. So we have a great view of what's happening around the world. We also work with corporates as well, understand their challenges. And sometimes when we're looking for solutions for them, they mightn't just come from the US where we're based. They might come from Brazil or Latin America or Europe, for example, depending on the challenge. I think for startups, you know, starting, you know, at the moment, it depends on the location, but a lot of the challenges can be felt in other parts of the world as well. So there's a great opportunity for them to build product market fit in their home markets and then expand globally and using those case studies to take advantage of that. And you know, for us ourselves based in the USA, a lot of international startups see us as a great way to kind of enter the US market, to get exposure to corporates and customers and farmers, and exposure, you know, publicity as well. So, you know, that's how we kind of see the inbound. And certainly, you know, we've just done a challenge in Latin America to find the best startups in Latin America, which some of our partners are on this call here today, like MAPA and SP Ventures, who took part in that, which was great. And we were really impressed, just to touch on Brazil, we were really impressed with the deal flow from there. We had about 214 applications, I think it was in the end. A quarter of them came from Brazil, and we have 3 Brazilian finalists who are taking part out of 10 companies. So that is actually on tomorrow. If I can give a plug for that event, you can check out our website and sign up for that if you'd like to learn more about those companies.
Great, thank you very much. And good to know that the students are looking for a bridge connecting with you in the US. Thank you very much. And Francisco, thank you for joining us here. And we had earlier this year the Agritech Radar, SP Ventures was part of it, and it's something that is a challenge for Brazil. The investment when compared to other major countries, we are one of the biggest industries in agriculture, but still low investment in Agritech on numbers and figures. So if you could just bring us some information on those and how we can foster the investments, make our startups and Agritechs bigger and bringing them strong to the US.
Of course, Rodrigo, first of all, thank you. It's an honor to be in a panel moderated by you and have such respected people by my side. And I'd like to thank Juliana and President Pestana for the opportunity of being here. So you're right, and we get that question a lot. I mean, agribusiness represents more than a quarter of Brazilian GDP, but it's less than 3-4% of total venture funding, right? So why is this? The fact of the matter is, we've been seeing the liquidity surge, is that liquidity for agtechs in the region have been exploding. I mean, we've invested in 40 agtech companies approximately over the past 10 years. And over the past 12 months, we've done 10 investments. So just on SP Ventures side. But if you look at the last 10 investments that we did, we invested a Fall Line Capital from California, Cultivian Sandbox, leading venture capital firm from Chicago. We've co-invested with Danny on a couple of deals. We've had several leading international investors investing for the first time in ag tech in Latin America and in Brazil specifically over the past 10 months. So we're seeing a change in scenario. The thing is that the Brazilian venture capital ecosystem has exploded as a whole. So as a percentage, it still looks small, but it's definitely catching up. And if you look at where venture funding is still going and why that percentage is small, it's because the fintech transactions like Nubank, Creditas, these guys, they're attracting $300, $400, $500 million checks, right? So the agribusiness checks, the agtech checks are coming in, but they're still percentage-wise smaller than the ones. Now, why is agtech behind fintech? The answers are very similar. If you look at what you need to build an exponential digital company, a unicorn, $1 billion startup, you need connectivity. You need to be able to transmit data and process data. And the fact of the matter is that connectivity reached urban centers first. So urban problems were tackled by entrepreneurs and venture funding first. But we're seeing this migrate strongly to the countryside and to agtech. I'm in Piracicaba right now, which is our Menlo Park of the agtech ecosystem with Exalki, Raizen, and several other centers. And we're seeing a surge of venture funding. And I'll tell you, not only venture funding, but the quality of ag tech entrepreneurs of the current vintage has been fantastic. So I have no doubt that in the next 5 years, Brazil is building the most sophisticated fintech industry for farmers, ag fintech. We've seen companies like Tribe, Aviagro, AgroLand sprouting over the last 12 months, offering digital credit for farmers. We're seeing carbon opportunities, companies like Moss, Earth, here from São Paulo and Porto Alegre, building crypto technology and core crypto infrastructure for crop markets and having today MCO2, the most liquid carbon credit in the world, coming from Moss Earth and coming from Brazil. We're seeing Brazil building the most advanced biologics industry of companies like AgriVale, Genica, ProMip, Symbiose, among others. So we're playing a big leapfrog game, but clearly the startup innovation speed has reached agriculture. And today the leading technologies and the biggest problems in agriculture are being solved not by large companies, but by small, tech-savvy, aggressive entrepreneurs backed by venture firms from Brazil and abroad.
Great. Glad to hear that. And I'm now welcoming back Bill Tomson for the Q&A. And Bill, I'm sorry we did a little bit over the time, but back to you. Thank you very much, Bill.
Yeah, Rodrigo, you did a terrible job. I expect better from you next time. I'm just kidding. This is not a big deal. We've had a lot of good information here. And so, I got questions piling up here, and one of them specifically is aimed towards Diego, but anybody else wants to jump in. Somebody wants to know, has the term regenerative agriculture entered into the Brazilian ag vocabulary?
Happy to take that one, Bill. Yes, I think that the term regen agriculture, it's still relatively new here in Brazil, okay? But what goes, or what the definition of regen, it's something that has been adopted and it's done here by most farmers in Brazil, okay? So most farmers here, besides having that natural vegetation set aside, okay, they have adopted no-till practices, crop rotation, cover crops. Brazil plants 2, sometimes even 3 crops a year. Many of them have integrated pest management control with biological agents, which reduces chemicals, okay? And then today we're seeing more and more farmers adopting the consortium of annual crops with perennial crops, meaning reforestation, and sometimes even cattle, everything within the same property. So that is the Brazilian or the tropical region agriculture that's being done here. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add that on, Bill, I've gotten a lot of feedback from some of the leading ag tech investors in California that one of the most exciting regenerative agriculture startups they've seen comes from Brazil, company called Rizoma, led by a guy called Fabio Sakamoto. You guys can all check him out on LinkedIn or on the internet. It's a spin-off from Fazenda da Toca, which is one of the leading organic farms here in Brazil. And they're extracting more than 55 bags of soybean here in São Paulo using regenerative agriculture. That's productivity, a lot of science, and now they're seeking venture funding and scalable business models.
Anything that produces more with using less, that's the sort of the well, not just the theme of today, but the theme of now everywhere. I mean, we are over, and I was just kidding before. This is partially my fault, but we've gone way over. Well, and you know what? Let's answer one more question here. There's a question about whether or not any of this new ag technology that you're talking about, can this translate into investors and people in the United States? Can this, if something's successful there, do people have eyes on other countries expanding? Or is it just two different types of the world?
I can jump on that one. So we do have a very different agriculture. I mean, my friends from MAPA have co-developed with local entrepreneurs the most sophisticated tropical agriculture ecosystem in the world. What's a challenge in our board of directors of the companies that we invest is, why am I going to go to the United States or to Europe if I can expand to Mato Grosso do Sul, Mato Piba? The market is huge and the opportunity is much simpler to execute. So from a business perspective, I think it's still growing within our ecosystem. Now, if you look at the next frontier where some of these companies are going to go, I think they should look for other tropical agriculture ecosystems, such as in sub-Saharan Africa, such as in Southeast Asia, large markets with very similar biodiversity and very similar challenges as we have over here. But we're seeing companies go to the U.S. We're seeing companies expand to the rest of Latin America and Central America. I mean, I think they have the potential, but from a business perspective, I think they will continue to grow first in Brazil and then seek out other tropical ecosystem frameworks.
Great, Francisco. Thank you so much. I'm going to have to cap it off here. Thank you very much to Rodrigo Mendes. You're great. Dr. Capdeville, Diego DiMartino, Danny O'Brien, and again, Francisco Jardim. I love your name. I just like to say it. It is one of those words, and it's so apropos for today, right? Jardim. I just picture, greenery and beautiful flowers. It's just, it's one of those words, Portuguese words like pipoca. I love the word pipoca. Don't ask me why. My daughter kids all the time and tells me I should stop putting it in my password. And I probably just shouldn't have said that on a webinar. But thank you very much. We're going to move to closing comments. No arguing, please. And I'd like to welcome Thiago Vicente, Head of Communications, Institutional and Government Relations at Apex-Brasil. Thiago, are you there?
Hi, Bill.
Hi,
everybody. Hi, listen to me well, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I hear you, and I'm listening to you. That's part of my job.
That's fine. That's what we expected.
Yeah.
I know that my time is short. I've been told that to be brief, but I would like also to say good afternoon to my colleagues here in Brazil. Also, good morning to my Brazilian colleagues and the government officials from U.S. over there. Also want to greet and thank our Brazilian ambassador, Nestor Forster, not only for helping us over there, but also for a giant accomplishment during the COP26, making us a co-partner of the Global Methane Pledge. I think this is something that we share with U.S. a common ground, as many others as we previously discussed it here And I think when we come to talk about agriculture here in Brazil, we think the numbers can speak by themselves. We see that our business model in agriculture is not only sustainable since its beginning, but it's also resilient. I think Sibeli mentioned that. But it's also important to highlight and to point that how quick it can react during difficult times like this one we are experiencing right now, this challenging times that the pandemic poses to us. And we can also look into the past and see how the agribusiness can also move the rest of the country, the rest of the industry, when we see and we consider that more than 80% of our fleet is run by ethanol, by renewables. And it's part of an effort that the country made in the late 70s to cope with the oil crisis that the whole world was involved in. This is something that's also have to be said, that not only it can react fast, it can provide good solutions. And I think the lessons that we took from the industry that the agribusiness can provide ranges from many different sectors in our economy. We see that many international corporations are here in Brazil and taking Brazil as its main investments target. Like we have here Mr. Eduardo Bastos from Bayer, John Harnett, and all the attraction that we can make when we have our colleagues from the USDA. And talking about Apex, I'd like just to say that we are here to try to promote this kind of meetings, because when we think about agriculture, people tend to think about only on commodities, but commodities hide something extremely important, and what is the part of what we have been discussing here since the beginning: innovation and technology. When people see the amount of production and productivity that we unlocked since the 70s until today, the regular people sometimes they didn't realize how much effort was put in place in terms of human brains, of academy, of private and public investments. And when we say about public investments, I give all my compliments to EMBRAPA here with listening to what Mr. Guy de Capdeville was talking. I think your time was very short, but you could be speaking a whole different chapter, because the history of EMBRAPA started with Alison Paulinelli, and coming until these days, while we speak, I think many research are being conducted. I know that since my previous jobs on the private sector, I also would like to say that there was a very interesting research on developing new fertilizers using sulfur, which is a byproduct from the oil refinery, meaning that we can rely on EMBRAPA in several different aspects of the supply chain of the agribusiness. When we're talking about fertilizers, I think we all understand what we are talking about, and I think what we've seen at COP26 also is a tip of the iceberg of all the common grounds that Brazil and the U.S. have in common to try to cooperate more than compete. I think that we have the whole world in need of more food, of more quality food. That's what we have. I also like to remember and to encourage everybody to read a recent study made by UBS, where they go deep into our agriculture. I can give the study to the results of this research to you afterwards, but it says clearly how sustainable and how clean not only our energy matrix is, but also how our supply chain of agriculture and our agribusiness is. And try to sum up everything that I've said. I'm very happy to say these final remarks and to excuse my my boss, he had an unexpected personal affair, and he asked me to replace him. Of course, I will never be as good as Mr. Pestana, as our Minister Pestana is, but this is the biggest challenge for me to try to deliver his message to you all, and say again that next year Apex will be 25 years old, and we still trying to foster more partnerships, try to attract more investments to Brazil, and try to bring more companies to work here, and to try to develop more technology here as we need, as we think we can have enough room, and also we have the possibilities to implement and to attract more investments towards another giant leap that we have made in the 70s. Maybe we can do another one, producing more with less water, with less energy, and try to provide more food to the whole world. And again, I send to you all my deepest thanks to the participants of this event, and also to say that Minister Pestana is very glad to be a partner of this great event that is the Agribusiness Talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiago. You did a great job. And just to cap off a very informative webinar, I want to thanks Tiago. Thank you, everybody. And our time is just about over. Actually, our time was over a long time ago. I apologize. But it's just been so interesting. And but still, I got to put in some thank yous to our speakers, our program co-host, Apex-Brasil, and the support by the Brazil-U.S. Business Council, the Embassy of Brazil in Washington, D.C., EMBRAPA, and the Brazilian government offices of the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovations and Communications at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In case you missed any of this, I said it before, I'll say it again. It was recorded. We're going to have it up on our website, and go there. And once you're there, stay there for a while. Anyway, listen, thanks, and have a great day, everybody. And that's it. And it was a real pleasure. Thank you.